Hello, I'm EnterElysium and welcome to Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich mod. So the Kaiserreich mod for Hearts of Iron 4 is basically a what if World War I had been won by the other side. If Germany had won World War I, what would the world look like going into World War II? So it's one of these mods that has a huge backstory. I think it originally started on Hearts of Iron 2 and has been going since then. It has a whole load of lore and history about why the nations go from what they did in World War I to being the nations they are going into World War II. We have stuff like the German Empire, which is no longer the Hitler-led fascist republic. It's a monarchy with an authoritarian democratic ideology. We've got the Commune of France and the Union of Britain, both of which are a type of communism. The Dominion of Canada is now where the actual British monarchy reside, having fled from Britain. The United States of America is actually pretty similar to what it is, except it's about to go through a civil war. Russia is actually a democratic place, because during the revolution, where the Reds rose up against the Whites, Germany intervened, because it didn't want to have a communist neighbor. We've got the Empire of Japan, which is relatively similar, I believe. I think they're a little bit more focused on not being a monarchy. I'm not too certain about them. But basically, it's this whole alternate history. Instead of making your own alternate history in Hearts of Iron by taking, say, Switzerland and dominating half the globe, you actually have an alternate history going into it. And so you've got this whole different starting point. In addition, there's a few different things. You might have noticed that the ideologies here aren't just communism, fascism, and democracy and unaligned. You actually have, say, authoritarian democracy. We've got syndicalists, which is a type of communism. Syndicalists, that one. Market liberals, social conservatives, and you've got a few other ones down here. I think Mexico is also radical socialist. And national populists, those are basically your fascists. Radical socialist, authoritarian democracy, social conservatives. Yeah, so you've got a whole array of different timelines. And of course, these all come with their own ideology trees and stuff. So the whole, what they're called, decision trees. I can't remember what they're actually called. I never remember what they're called. I've played a lot of Hearts of Iron. I never remember what that's called. Actually are completely different for all the major parties and players. So we're going to actually play as the Union of Britain because it's a very different start. After 1921's Peace with Honor ended the Weltkrieg, the faith and support of the people in the home islands had disappeared. In 1925, disaster struck. A minor labor dispute quickly escalated into a general strike, called by the TUC. I can't remember what the Teachers Union something. It's a trade union coalition, I think. TUC, trade union coalition, followed by military desertions to the strikers. After 6 weeks of rioting on a massive scale, the royal family and most of the country's elites were evacuated to Canada, and instead a new Congress of Trade Unions assumed political authority. The British people are currently content to build socialism in isolation, yet many are starting to think that the monarchists in Canada cannot be allowed to plot against the Union indefinitely. So, we play as syndicalists. I'm going to call them syndicalists. I think that's the pronunciation. Basically, they have a syndicated system of communism. Each group of people who works at a place form the union of the workers who work at that place, and they also own that place. And you also got all these little cool symbols. They're so cool. They fit the game scheme so well. The devolution. With the establishment of the Trade Union Coalition in Cardiff and Edinburgh, the process of devolution will come to a successful end. Evolution. Both the autonomists and the markets are trying to change an already working machine. British singlism is fine as it will, if they would only understand that. So there's this whole fight inside communism for different types of communism going on. And we've also got revolution. The whole reforming the country business has turned out to be a very boring. We can attempt one swift strike to totally seize the means of politics and make our political program reality. This will be risky, though. This is, I think, the route to like total communism, where it's actually central government control, which is actually more fascist, but whatever. We're going to start as Union of Britain. And we'll go on regular Iron Man mode, all good. Let's dive in. Right, thank you Kaiserreich team. News events. Okay, so throughout the game, it's a lot of lore and a lot of story that's going on around the world about how things have changed. It's really interesting to find out, like, why are things happening differently? For this, you can basically choose, do you want to know everything, pop-ups about different countries, only inform me about major events in different countries, or I want none of this nonsense. In which case, you only get the pop-ups about your country, which is the default situation with Hearts of Iron. You don't tend to get, pop-ups about, say, Argentina when you're playing as the UK. You get pop-ups about the UK and certain big things like if someone drops a nuclear bomb. Basically, with this in place, Kaiserreich will tell you about certain things happening in other places just because of the cool way that the story's played out differently. I'm going to say I want to know everything. I'm quite interested to find out how this alternate timeline is progressing. And there are 500,000 players. Kaiserreich is, I think, the biggest total conversion mod, although I know Millennium Dawn is also a big one. I'm not sure if it's bigger. But Kaiserreich definitely feels to me, having played Kaiserreich more recently, admittedly, that it's actually got a much more polished product. Also, Equestrian War, which I almost played instead of Kaiserreich. Equestrian War, you play as a load of ponies. I didn't play it in the end because I couldn't figure out some of the things I was dubious about. There wasn't enough documentation. It's actually a really good mod. But, hi. Welcome to Britain.
Yes, sir!
We have a load of Home Guard. Isn't that lovely? So, let's look at what we've got going on. We have civilian economy, export focus, volunteer only. We also have Oswald Mosley here as our economy minister. Oh dear. Militias, recruitable population factor 2%, division recruitment rate plus 10%, division organization minus 20, planning speed minus 50, division defense on core, division attack on core plus 5%. The British military is still largely organized in the impromptu workers' militias of 1925. While these local militias have a high morale, they seem disregardful? They seem disregardful for some of the finer... Is disregardful a word? They seem disregardful for some of the finer concepts of warfare, such as need for working logistics. Due to the deafening cries of break the chains, our officers routinely suffer from psychological breakdowns. Yeah. Incidentally, by the way, logistics is one of these things that completely revolutionized military warfare in terms of the First World War and the Second World War, because you used to have armies would march on their stomachs, right? And they could only go so far without any food. And what happens is that the army would march, they'd have an amount of food with them in their baggage train, but they couldn't go past a certain size, and they would have to try and get food on the way. So armies would march divided and fight united, which is a thing that Napoleon did. Napoleon really kind of revolutionized that concept and came up with that, in that the armies would march as smaller sections of the army, and then when they got to a battle, they would reunite. And that meant that they could actually have a much bigger footprint and allow them to actually get a lot more food from the area with ease. And so they could, travel without having to have this massive problem of how do we feed the army quite as much. Of course, that was still related to, trashing the area to grab food from it. Now, and especially in the First World War, having the huge concentrations of people that were going on that we had, you couldn't really do that. You would completely decimate an area, destroy everything, and eat all the food that there was, and you would still be hungry, because there were just so many people in one small area. And so it came down to having to use things like rail networks and so on, logistics to get the food to certain places, and the same goes true for guns and resupply, etc. Because there are so many people going on, it's so complicated to do logistics for that many people. Most militaries were kind of still falling over themselves. In First World War, Germany completely turned it on its head and had the German General Staff. And the General Staff were basically in charge of certain things, and logistics was one of them. And they were revolutionary. In fact, in the Treaty of Versailles, I believe they were the first, and I think the only ever, maybe, I'm not certain about that last part, it could have changed since I learned it. They were the first, and I think the only, out-and-out military organization to be banned by a peace treaty. And the Treaty of Versailles straight up banned the German General Staff because they were way too effective at what they did. And part of that is due to the fact that you couldn't buy a commission in the German General Staff. Other forces, Britain, etc., you could at the time buy being a captain or something. The German General Staff was entirely a meritocracy. You got in there and you went up the ranks because you did well. You couldn't just buy your way in at a higher rank. It's something that, it may seem obvious these days, but back in the day, that was a big change. That was a paradigm shift. And yeah, they were so effective, they got banned. And they then continued to work in secret after Germany got disarmed, etc., and then helped in the Second World War and all that jazz. But Obviously, this is a different timeline, so yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was an impromptu history lesson about logistics in the First World War. I just find that really interesting. That's personally a little factoid, because logistics is something you don't really get focused on in war games, etc. Obviously, Hearts of Iron does, to an extent. Right, anyway, let's look at our national focus trees. That looks so different. Wow. Isn't this like a different timeline or something? Obviously, you've got, you know, your naval section. You've got your army. Wait. What? Ah! Okay, that's strange. You've got your army section. You've got your naval section. You've got your flying-y section. Army, Navy, flying-y. Yes, the third and most well-known branch of the armed forces. The flying-y section. Britain with the Internationale. Trade Union Congress is over. Okay. And this is sort of missions to Norway. This is your diplomacy section, it looks like, which is where you do reaching out to Australasia, reaching out to India, Mexican, American comrades. Ooh. Combined Syndicate of America exists. Right, so we need to push. Basically, instead of having the Spanish Civil War coming up, I think it's the American Civil War, and it's going to be a fight between the fascists and the communists, and I kind of want to make sure the communists win. Getting an American side would be very useful. Yeah, we need to flip them to be able to do that, though. Class warfare. Nice. Total mobilization. Ooh. Oh, wow. Recruit population does go down. Yeah, we basically get to flip to total mobilization straight from civilian economy. Yeah, that allows us to go total mobilization straight away without having to do any flips or any political power charging. Air Force. What's an Air Force? That's a total flying-y thingamabob, whatever. Vote for officers, people officers call. There's some stuff in here about, like, being able to send people, I think. Revolutionary Exportation Directory, red. No, that's, Citrus Command. Local Talent Initiative. Central Industry. The Trade Union Congress must be over, so that's the thing we're really waiting on, which is this. The Congress of Trade Unions. We have to do this. This is effectively the thing that's going to gate everything else. This actually leads down to our big decisions about how we are going to progress as Britain. If you look down, we've got status quo, home rule, political commissars, move the trade union coalition, moves capital to the West Midlands, Wales and Scotland will become puppets once devolution is complete, or dissolve the trade union coalition. Wales and Scotland will become independent once devolution is complete. Then you've got devolution, where Wales and Scotland become separate. 3 armies. We will aid the building of the Welsh and Scottish national armies with about half our current stored equipment. Evolution, which instead of going down this route, you don't get devolution anymore. We get base stability. And then we can do another Congress of the Trade Unions after we're doing all that. And of course, we go down this way, we get revolution. So, revolution, change in popularity of totalists, 5%. Remove national spirit militias. We lose the militia modifier, which is kind of a defensive bonus, but still useful. Oswald Mosley will become General Secretary and Grand Protector of the Union of Britain. Oh dear. Attempt to bring order to this country. Our success will depend on how many reforms it put through already. Oh. Oh dear. It's not certain? Wow. Okay, that could be fun. Right. In which case, I think we'll start off with the Congress of Trade Unions. Oh, wait. Oh, no, yeah, no, we're good. We'll start that. Unassigned divisions. Yes, there are a lot of unassigned divisions. I'm just gonna bloop and chuck you down here. Now, who do you want to put in charge? Panzer leader, meh, engineer, armored officer, infantry officer. Commando. give you like an extra one. I'm going to say you, because you've got infantry officer, which gives you experience factor. So, sure. Raymond, you're in. And we can also give you combined arms or panzer, which doesn't really matter right now. Okay.
Ready to move.
If you would like to garrison. For now, we'll just garrison all the things. And yeah, I mean, you'll want 78, but for now, just do that. And then do some training or something, probably. Yeah. Now, we also need to do our research. There we go. Nope, that's not the right one. I keep forgetting what the hotkey is. W. Yeah, it's just QW. I always hit T for technology, then I hit R for research by default. I'm like, oh, that's not it, is it? Alright. Going over to engineering. The technologies are pretty similar. I mean, technology is technology. The timeline hasn't changed it that much. We'll probably want to grab mechanical computing for that buff. And then we'll want to grab machine tools, which we don't actually have. And then construction 1. Now, do we need to get oil? That is a big question, because we don't actually have a lot of our holdings over the seas. In fact, we have none of them. Look at this. You've got French Republic, sure. Deutsche Mittelafrika, which is German Middle Africa. Persia exists. Deutsch Ostracine. I'm not sure what that translates as. German something. East Asia. Oh! Ostasien. German East Asia. Right. That makes sense. Alger-Ossien Gesellschaft. Not sure what that translates as. But basically you have a lot of the world has been taken over by Germany because they took over a lot of the provinces that Britain owned. And in most cases, they're actually running as separate entities. But, of course, they are puppets of Germany. And one of the things that we normally have control over is rubber, because we control all the rubber down here. Unfortunately, though, it is now owned by the German East Asia, which is, of course, a puppet. So we don't have that access to the amount of rubber that we normally do. So we might actually need to get our own rubber. So if we have a quick look at trade. Yeah, we've got so little rubber. We'll probably want to figure out how to do oil processing, etc. But it is a year ahead of time, so for now, I think we can ignore that. Land doctrine. We actually don't start with a land doctrine. Interesting. Mass assault, we don't have the numbers to do that. Normally, sure, that's normally it's the communist way, but that's only the communist way because you have Russia, who's with their industry, and China, who is I have loads of people and no industry. We'll probably want to go superior firepower, mobile warfare, or maybe ground battle plan, but to be honest, I've never been a massive fan of ground battle plan. I think the way forward is going to be hitting mobile or superior firepower. And I think I'm going to go superior firepower because tanks are going to be harder for us to produce without a massive amount of oil. So we'll start on superior firepower right now. Now we've got a load of free dockyards. Ooh, early heavy carrier. I'm not going to put you on auto. I would like you to produce in the London area. Do-do-do. By the way, look at that. That submarine is completely different from what we normally have. It looks a lot more German to me. It looks a lot more like a U-boat, which makes sense considering Germany won the war. I guess their military and sort of military design concepts will be dominant in this era. We've got 2 more naval dockyards to put in. It's annoying that you've already got, like, slight build stuff because I don't want to abandon you. But you are only producing ones, so... You know what? Yeah. What we can do is we'll find the one who's about 4 years away, and we'll speed that up by adding 2 more. And then we'll want to go down to our equipment down here, and how many military factories were exactly committed. Interwar fighter is just awful. It's trash. I'm going to probably just get rid of that. The same is probably true for our light tank. And same is true for our... Oh yeah, same is true for all of these. Towed artillery. Well, we'll want more artillery. Artillery is really good. There we go. That's a good way to get us started. And we're going to need to trade some stuff. So, hi. United States. We'll start with you. Chromium. Russian Republic. And, ooh, that's a good question. Do we have... We do not have any commercial convoy type stuff going on. Ah! Right, let's get ourselves some of those. Convoy! Oh, wrong one. Yeah, if you could just come up here. Thank you. I'm actually going to remove the 2 we put here. God damn it. I keep trying to use WASDA. Right. Free civilian factories. We'll probably want to build a lot more civilian factories. It seems to be logical. So let's grab some civilian factories. Ah! I did WASDA again! I'm not good at this. Come here. Right. Civilian factory. I don't want to focus too much in case I decide to do devolution. I haven't decided yet whether we'll go the devolution route or not. Because we can still devolve, I think, to an extent without having to go avoid, like, total mobilization or whatever. Not total mobilization, total communism. Right. Yeah, we'll build those for a start. It takes a while to get through them. Right. Unpause. And we are okay. Good job, everybody. After the defeat of France, the United Kingdom's war with Germany dragged on inconclusively for 2 years. In 1921, the stalemate was finally broken when Lloyd George agreed to the German proposal of a peace with honour. While Britain's overseas territories remained largely intact, the favour of the people did not. In 1925, disaster struck. A minor labour... Oh, so we kept our overseas provinces, but they kind of just drifted away? Interesting. Yet the world is seemingly ready to erupt in chaos. Many are starting to wonder if Britain has a duty to spread the revolution to our former colonial territories. After all, the monarchies in Canada are not allowed to be plot. Okay, so we want to be able to kind of spread communism to our overseas territories. That works. I'm in for that. All right, carry on. Now, you're wondering about who else in the world is what way. Obviously, we've got... actually, can we do a map mode for that? Factions map mode. That's the third international. It's just us two right now. We're still nicely aligned. We are the same type of communism. But what is the diplomacy? No. There's no ideology map mode. I always like the day-night loop, but when you go on 5 times speed, especially with YouTube, it does flicker a bit for people. Okay, no ideology map mode that I can show you, but basically the idea being that right now we've got Germany, who's authoritarian democracy. Ooh. Democratic over here. Italy's actually split up in 2. Kingdom of Spain. And I believe we actually have a proper, like, national populist fascist over here. I think it's Romania. Yeah, Iron Guard, Romania. Kerensky's been shot and killed while on the way to Senatel. The Senatel? The Senate was taken down by the police, but the goals and intention of the attack are unknown. Despite his massive unpopularity among the Russian people due to the botched land reform and ineffective rule, Kerensky was nevertheless able to hold the country together. The senators are already discussing a possible replacement for Kerensky. Okay, so Russia's about to have a shift in politics, possibly. I need to make sure we can influence you when the time comes. Conrad Mosley calls a meeting. Conrad Mosley of the Marxist faction has invited... Okay, so... Oh, not Marxist, sorry. Maximist. It's not total communism. It's Maximist communism. Maximum communism. Has invited George Velos of the French Sarlians, Leverti Beria of the former Bolsheviks in Georgia, and Benito Mussolini of the Italian National Syndicalists to Birmingham. Really, Mussolini? Okay. To compile a manifesto stating their joint aims for a new kind of socialism called totalism. Oh, it is totalism. Chairman Snowden's Federationists should keep an eye on the development. There we go. That's our trade union coalition thing happening. Edward VIII crowned as King of Britain. George V, the last king of Britain and Ireland to have ruled the home islands themselves, has passed while in exile in Canada. The first Windsor king. His reign shall be remembered with sorrow and sadness, as during it Britain lost both the Weltkrieg and its homeland. The crown was inherited by Edward, Prince of Wales, who now styles himself Edward VIII. Oh. He is a vengeful and ambitious man, and not on good terms with Prime Minister Mackenzie King. He lives in the call of avenging his father and reconquering, oh dear. Totalist Charter. Mussolini, Velos, Beria, and other interested parties have arrived in Birmingham to discuss the common ground. The Charter claims that the social state is the final stage of human development, and the democracy is not necessary to achieve socialism. These statements have been drawn great criticism from our socialist factions, who give it the name totalism, as a play on totalitarian socialism, which has been eagerly accepted by Mosley, who added it to the manifesto's name, attributing it to their total commitment to socialism. Let's hope the people will reject this madness. Okay, so yeah, Mosley's pushing for that. Funny that. I wonder why Mosley's pushing for a removal of democracy. Let's go to 5 times speed. Afghanistan declares war on the Dominion of India. Right. So the Dominion of India, India's now like these 3 big sections here, is actually Chamber of Princes. Interesting. Social Conservatives. Then you've got Radical Socialists over here. And you've got Authoritarian Democrats over here. I thought those were person charters. Maybe they've died or changed already. Or maybe I'm just imagining it. But they're the most traditional British kind of part of India. Trevilla's elected in France. The Commune is working towards the world's leading syndicalist nation, united as a federation of city communes and directed by the Comité de Salut Public, the primary executive. Ever since its inception, however, the Second Commune is not uniform in its policy. The replacement of the disgraced Marceau Pervert arose from his own faction, the Travailers, who now hold the leading position. They stand for extension of democracy and draw inspiration from the British to decentralize the commune. Oh, so they're drawing inspiration from us about decentralizing the commune, and they want to probably like have, imagine, Brittany and maybe make Aquitaine or whatever break off. Interesting. Black Monday. On the 3rd of February, the Berlin Stock Exchange stopped sinking. It plunged. Fueled by instability in the market panic, selling erupted as soon as the stock market opened on Monday morning. It took well into the night for the teleprinters to stop spurting out the results of what became known as Black Monday. When the results had been analysed, it's clear that the situation only got worse. The shock of this unprecedented economic catastrophe will no doubt be felt around the world. The German golden age has ended, for now at least. Mein Gott. Yeah. So the Great Depression obviously still hits America, and I still think you've got effects from it. Yeah, the Great Depression. But this is Germany's own little one, considering that Germany didn't suffer after the First World War because they didn't lose. This is now the chance where they're like, oh dear, our system is starting to fail. The Fifth Anglo-Afghani War. After the World Krieg, the British Raj collapsed in turmoil and warfare. The neighbouring kingdom of Afghanistan took advantage of this as the opportunity to seize Peshawar and Quetta, both border regions of the domain. However, the Afghani government attempts to modernize over the last decade have been met with fierce resistance from the conservative elements of the country. King Ahmadullah Khan now hopes to use the turmoil in Delhi following the death of George V to his advantage. It was George V who was head of that. Right. The king now hopes to silence the conservative opposition and bring new lands into the crown. However, the international experts do not put many hopes on the tiny mountain nation winning this conflict. And there we go. Now, I don't know which way we're going to go with this. I don't know which flavour of communism we want to go. Let's check that again. This does take a while to go through. We could go... because the only ones that are, like, completely separate are these. Like, we can dissolve the trade union coalition and we can move the trade union coalition. That's fine. You can do that and you can do these. The choice is devolution, which minus political power. Scotland gains cause, Wales gains cause. They become puppets and they join the Internationale. Or evolution, we get stability, we continue as we are. Or revolution, which will give us minus political power, remove national spirit militias, we get popularity of total is 5%, and, yeah. Apparently our success will depend on how many reforms we push through. Yay! But we can do that at the same time as having done dissolve the TUC and make Wales and Scotland independent, or move the TUC and make them become puppets. Oh, but that's only once devolution is complete. So that will only happen if we do this one. Right. Okay, that's interesting. So that's basically the prep for this. Interesting. Okay. So I'm not sure which one we're going to go for. I actually want to hear people's opinions down below. Yeah. We'll just let your experience tick up a little bit further. Oh no, your experience is ticked up to full. What am I talking about? Peace deal has been signed. Huh. Wow, that was quick. Yeah, you're actually fully trained up. You've actually hit the experience level 3 regular modifier, so that's actually not going to tick up any further. So yeah, you can stop wasting our equipment, which incidentally is a good time for us to look at our equipment and maybe even hire some people. Look, we've even got German infantry helmets because Germany is the dominant power in Europe. It's so cool. Alright, here we go. We are low on light tanks, but that was going to be the case anyway. I don't really want to produce the light tanks until we upgrade them a bit. Fine on everything else. Could do more support equipment. Probably the same on artillery, especially if we want to change our militias over to having artillery. But for now, not so bad. Right, I think it's a good place to end this first episode. We managed to get into it. Kaiserreich is one of these massively in-depth mods, especially a lot of the story. I'm definitely interested in like how this story has got to the stage and the lore behind it and how it continues. I don't know if you are at home. If you are, let me know. If you aren't, let me know as well in the comments, because I can always turn off the "tell me all the information" setting. I think I can turn that off still. Not sure where. I could also just skip the prompts. And yeah, also let me know what sort of Britain you want me to evolve into. I'm kind of thinking I'll probably go Totalist just so that I can expand them easier. Totalist will certainly give us an easier time at that. But I do want to hear opinions. Either way, I've been EnterElysium. Like, subscribe. Let me know down below, especially what your thoughts are on the mod and if you're liking Hearts of Iron content on the channel. Of course, the expansion is coming out in, I think, only a month, so we're going to definitely be playing that on the channel, the Man the Guns one, which is going to be a complete revolution to naval warfare, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, let me know down below. Comments also really help with the YouTube channel's search engine bollocks, so do all that. But until next time, I've been EnterElysium, and stay shiny.